at a narrow mountain pass called Thermopylae, roughly 300 Spartan soldiers held off an invading army of tens of thousands for 3 full days. They lost, every single one of them died, and somehow that defeat became the single most terrifying advertisement a military culture has ever produced. For 200 years, most of the ancient Greek world organized its entire foreign policy around one single question: what will Sparta do? Not Athens with its navy and its wealth, not Persia with its endless manpower. Sparta, a city with no walls, a tiny population, and an economy that barely functioned. So what turned one small, poor city into the most feared name in the ancient Mediterranean? And why did that fear outlast Sparta's actual military power by more than a century? To understand Spartan fear, you have to understand that Sparta wasn't really a city that had an army. Sparta was an army that happened to have a city attached to it. At age 7, Spartan boys were taken from their homes entirely and enrolled in a state education system called the agoge, built around one purpose: producing soldiers who could endure anything. Cold, hunger, physical punishment, and constant competition weren't punishments, they were the curriculum. By the time a Spartan man reached adulthood, he had spent his entire life training for exactly one job: fighting in a phalanx formation so disciplined that it rarely broke, even when other Greek armies routinely did. But here's the detail almost nobody focuses on. This entire system only worked because of a group of people historians barely mention when they talk about Sparta's power. We'll come back to who was actually keeping the city running while every free Spartan man trained for war. On the battlefield, this training showed. A Spartan phalanx moved and held its line with a precision other Greek city-states simply couldn't match. And crucially, Spartans were trained never to retreat. A reputation so consistent that in many cases, enemy armies broke and ran before the fighting even reached them. This is where Spartan fear gets genuinely strange, because much of Sparta's real power came from battles it never had to fight. Other Greek city-states, hearing that Spartan hoplites were part of an opposing force, would sometimes negotiate or retreat rather than risk it. Which brings us back to Thermopylae. In 480 BC, King Leonidas leads a small force, roughly 300 Spartans, alongside several thousand allied Greek troops, to block a mountain pass against the invading Persian army under King Xerxes. For 2 days, this small force holds off an army that vastly outnumbers them, using the narrow terrain to prevent Persia's numbers from mattering. It's only on the 3rd day, after a local guide shows the Persians a hidden mountain path around the pass, that the position finally becomes indefensible. Leonidas sends most of the allied force away and stays behind with his Spartans and a small group of others, not because staying could win the battle, but because retreating wasn't something Spartan identity allowed. They fight to the last man. Militarily, it's a defeat. Persia wins the pass. But the story of that stand spreads through the Greek world faster than any victory could have. And it cements something that outlasts the battle itself, the idea that Spartans simply do not break, even facing certain death. Now here's that detail from earlier. Sparta's entire warrior culture was only possible because of a massive enslaved population called helots, who vastly outnumbered actual Spartan citizens and did all the farming labor and food production that let Spartan men train full-time instead of working. This wasn't a small detail. Historians estimate helots outnumbered full Spartan citizens by as much as 7 to 1. Sparta lived with a constant real fear of revolt from the very population its entire military system depended on, and that fear shaped nearly everything, including why Spartan citizens trained obsessively for combat, even when no foreign war was happening. And this is where the cracks start. The number of full Spartan citizens, the elite warriors everyone feared, was shrinking generation after generation due to strict citizenship requirements and the brutal training itself. By the 4th century BC, Sparta had a fraction of the trained manpower it once had, which brings us to the battle that finally breaks the myth. At Leuctra in 371 BC, a Theban general named Epaminondas uses an unconventional formation to concentrate his forces against Sparta's flank, instead of matching it head-on. And for the first time in generations, a Spartan army is decisively defeated in open battle. With fewer citizens to fight and helots increasingly restless, Sparta's military reputation had been running on fear and momentum for years, long after its actual manpower could back it up. So why was Sparta so feared? Not because it was the strongest city in Greece for the longest time. Athens had more wealth, more ships, and eventually more actual power. Sparta was feared because it built an entire society, from birth, around the single idea that its soldiers would rather die than retreat, and then proved it publicly at exactly the right moment for the story to spread. Sparta famously never built walls around its city, even for centuries. The reasoning, according to ancient sources, was simple. A city defended by its citizens' reputation didn't need stone. For nearly 200 years, that reputation alone kept most of the ancient world cautious. It just couldn't survive contact with an enemy who finally stopped believing it. If you want more of history's most feared civilizations broken down like this, subscribe. The next one drops soon. Thanks for watching.